Hello, team, and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics Greg Terry experience. Silicon Curtain with Jonathan Fink, co-stream production, chats, updates, get
trifecta. The trifecta.
We are. This is. If basically, we could run the universe between us. There's that much. I think you guys have got. Well, I don't know what you guys have got. I've got the brawn and the brain and the good looks, but I don't know about you guys. You bring something, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I was talking to Operator Starsky just a little while ago, and we were comparing haircuts. And as people in my live, I released it last night that I got glue in my hair and I had to shave my head. I couldn't get the glue out, so I was talking with Starsky just an hour or so ago, and he sent me a picture back. He goes, "Bro, I got more hair than you got now." So having a good time. It'll grow out quickly though. There's nothing like. I kept wearing a hat and I'm going, you know what? I don't like wearing a hat when I'm streaming. Jonathan Fink and I, we're courteous to our audience. It's just Jonathan Pierce that puts a hat on. Although it does have a nice, it's so disrespectful, but it does have a nice Ukrainian trident there.
So why are you in a suit? Where's your suit? I know.
There's a bit of a story behind this cap, which is this is my favorite cap ever, and then I lost it, so it's not this one. And it's in the house. I don't know. I don't leave the house hardly ever. So this is my number one cap. And Pierre got it for me. Pierre, who you both know, we both been around Ukraine with Pierre. And I was like, mate, you got me the last cap and when you sent me a box of goodies, mate, can you get me? And today, a box turned up with a pair of Ukraine socks and two of these caps, and I am made up. So Pierre is getting some serious love from me. But there you go.
Well, it's a beautiful hat. I love it, man. I like that color too. So looks good on you, JP.
Yep. And we have James, actually, why Ukraine, James the Last Alliance. We met, Jonathan and I met James in...
I know James well.
And you know James, of course, as well, Greg. And we met James in Kiev, where he came to hang out with us at the hostel in Kiev. So that was really cool to meet him there. And he came on my live stream the other day and had quite a lot of interesting stuff to say about what he's doing for the unit he's presently with and the kind of situation with regard to drones and all sorts. So yeah, it's good to have you on board, mate.
Yeah, much respect and love to James. He's there.
He is indeed.
Exactly. And working every day. So
that's true. That's absolutely true. I had a disaster just before we came live, whereby I opened up a bottle of John O'Groats, which is a north of Scotland. This is from north of Scotland, but it's a Liberty Groat American Pale Ale. Just trying to hopefully, I do hope there's still liberty in America.
Get yourself in the mood, yeah.
Yeah, so I opened it up and the whole thing just exploded all over my desk. And I've now got, I stink of like a brewery and my mouse mat is just covered in beer and I'm not very happy. So
well, I will tell you this. We come into the backstage here of the live stream before Mr. Fink was in. And as I logged in, all I could see was Johnny bent over with the plumber's crack cleaning his floor. So it was very enjoyable. I was able to see the derriere of Mr. Pierce,
which is
quite a view. It's quite a view.
It's rare I get down on my knees because I can't get up very easily with my MS. So
the gaping hell.
It was the moon over Miami. Let me tell you, buddy. It was the moon over Miami.
Well, I haven't got rid of the smell of the beer, but I've got rid of most of the liquid. So, gentlemen, how do you feel about the war at the moment? What are your general thoughts? What are your thoughts with regard to the minerals deal? What are your thoughts with regard to Donald Trump and the American sort of peace negotiation efforts? Talk me through how you're feeling at the moment.
Mr. Fink, I defer to you first.
I will go. I mean, we talked about this a couple of times. Whether people in that process felt it was genuine or not, whether Witkoff really thought he was doing something useful and genuine, I don't know. Maybe only history will tell. But it seemed obvious that it was something of a hollow facade, because not only were the two sides poles apart when that process began, with a whole series of what seems to be irreconcilable aspirations on each side. Obviously, Russians' aspirations are to take things that don't belong to them, and Ukraine's aspirations is to not die and get the things back that were stolen. It seems that there's a pretty different agenda going on there. And as that process proceeded, the US, whether it's through ignorance or design, the negotiation team were taking what could be only described as a kind of attack that was beneficial to the Kremlin. There's no other way to describe it. In watching that process unfold, I even think they suggested some things that maybe the Russian side weren't even pushing for, but they were like, yeah, we'll take that. Thank you very much. But the real reason it's not reconcilable is because at the end of the day, Putin was offered the deal of a lifetime. He was offered everything he could possibly want. And he had, for a while, the US prepared to beat up Ukraine to try and force them to capitulate to Moscow. Did he take that opportunity? No, he basically threw it back in the faces of the US. And I think this tells me something absolutely critical. Again, we've discussed a few times. Putin not only does not want peace, Putin doesn't need peace anymore because his regime is now constructed on a militarized society and a militarized economy. And if that was to suddenly, let's say, demilitarize or suddenly not have a conflict to justify it, I don't think his regime could survive that shock. Now, his regime might not survive the militarization phase we see at the moment, but certainly it buys Putin more time. And at the moment, I think he's in the business of buying more time for his regime, irrespective of the cost. So this whole process, it's almost an inevitability that it was going to collapse. I thought that when it collapsed, the US would turn around and direct their fire at Ukraine as being the guilty party. So the absence of that, that is something. That is something. I won't say, as some commentators have said, look, Trump's now aligning with Ukraine. He's aligning against Putin. Now, that's going way, way too far, and I think reading far too much into these scant tea leaves. But what's certainly the case is that process has been demonstrated to those involved that it's not going to go anywhere, and perhaps they'll realize that it never was.
I concur with that. I will tell you, Trump came out about an hour or two ago with a statement stating, and he said, we're basically at the end of making a final decision in regard to trying to continue the mediation or continue whatever role we were playing, which was a joke with, if you consider how we were playing that game with Witkoff as our representative. That may be the video there, but he just came out with that. We're at a very, very critical time for this war, and so here's what's happening. I'm watching it right now. We have 48 minutes until the Putin declared ceasefire comes into effect. That happens in 48 minutes. We all know, I put out a video earlier, and many people, you've already watched it, and thank you. Massive Ukrainian attacks over the last 24 to 36 hours, completely disrupting everything in Russia. I'm talking air travel.
Actually, that's been going on since the minerals deal. I don't know whether the minerals deal unlocked something, whether they were holding back. But it seems like I'm sorry to interrupt, Greg, but it seems like when the minerals deal was kind of done and dusted, Ukraine just went, right, let's have at it. And they've been hitting with like 100 drones a night.
Let's be honest.
The Russians claim there were 524 last night.
Let's be honest. The minerals deal is a deal. It's not going to bring massive benefit to Ukraine or the United States for a decade, but it's a deal. Trump can say, I made a deal, and it's time for me to make another deal somewhere else. Right now, I'm just getting information out of Israel tonight, and guys that are on my channel, they know I work in so many nations. I went live and was dealing with India and Pakistan, but I just got information out of Israel within the last 30 minutes that they are getting the hints. Trump yesterday saying over the next 24, 72 hours, I'm going to have this great big statement. Well, Israel is already putting it out that the statement's going to actually be about Gaza. So everybody was wondering, well, it's going to be about Russia or about Ukraine? No, Israel's saying it's going to be about Gaza. So we'll see. We'll see. But regardless, this is, you know, the exit out. We're seeing Vance with his statements today. It's the exit out. You know, these people hate each other. Gert has called me today. We talk every day, and we were talking back and forth. And I said, you know what the Americans can't understand? And I'm an American. You two guys are our dear friends there in the UK. All right. Here's what the Americans can't understand. And my grandfather, he's passed away now, was a highly decorated World War II hero, naval hero. He was in the Pacific realm. He also was active at the Cuban Bay missile crisis there, the Bay of Pigs. He was highly decorated in the Korean War. And here's what most Americans can't understand. And that is, since World War I, we'll come to World War I and forward, because prior to that, 1800s, 1700s, yes, we had battles on our territory, Civil War, etc. But World War I and forward, we have only fought foreign wars. We've never had the bombs dropping on our cities, on our territories. We've never had, territories taken or civilians killed or anything that even Europeans and you wonderful folks there in the UK, you dealt with so intently in World War II. So and I will just leave it as our lunacy there in the White House, when they make statements, it's not only ignorant, but they can't even understand. So when Vance comes out and says, well, these people just hate each other. Okay, you don't understand what is actually happening because you've never experienced this on your own dirt. Now, I will tell you, today I had a long conversation with my partner, Zhenya, there in Ukraine, and you were asking just in general, how are things looking? It's hell right now on the front lines. Over the last few days, I now was just informed 2 hours ago, I've lost some very dear friends of ours that we support. If I was to put their pictures up right now, you guys would recognize them from videos that I've done with them over the last 3 years. So, and it's a tough day for me today. Zhenya had to call me and say, hey, man, this guy's gone. 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 And I mean, literally, and this is all over the last 3 or 4 days in very strategic places that are not zero lines. Yes, zero line losses, but I'm talking even back. FPV drone striking back 5-10 kilometers, killing some of my friends. It's very, very difficult down Pokrovsk way, the road connecting Pokrovsk, Mirnograd into Konstantinivka. That road is hell, and Russia is gaining more and more control of that, which will then give them back access into Konstantinivka. So they're coming into Konstantinivka from the backside, coming up from Turets, coming in from Chasiv Yar. And it's very, very difficult. Parts of Slavyansk right now are completely de-energized because of some glide bombs that just came in. This is what's happening. It's very difficult. So I'll throw it back to you because you asked. So Jonathan was talking, Mr. Fink was talking about, the political side of it. I'm giving you some of the military side of it. But what's interesting is in 43 minutes, Russia ceased, and I'm watching their news right now. It's going to kick in, and they're going to talk about this. So Zelensky came out 1 hour ago and said, we still are ready for a 30-day ceasefire. 30-day. Russia is stuck on the 3-day for the victory parade. So you have no way to rectify that situation. They completely view it differently. Now, I will load up a video. In fact, let me do that because just a few minutes ago, and this is important to see before we go on. Right here. Just watch this. Okay. I'm sorry, John. Just watch this, and then we go forward because this is what we need to have as a basis.
The Kiev regime's actions today and yesterday,
all right,
knowing that world leaders are coming to Moscow.
There you go. Try again.
Doing what they're doing.
Sorry, my map was just...
Well, the Kiev regime is well aware of President Putin's initiative to declare a temporary truce for the holidays. The Kiev regime has yet to make a single statement expressing readiness to join this initiative. We've heard many ambiguous statements at various levels before, and now we see their real actions. They continue to show their true nature, their unwillingness and aversion to peace, and their tendency for terrorist acts and strikes on civilian targets, which can only be described as such. And this justifies the continuation of the special military operation.
Right there. Okay, so that statement was 1 hour ago, Peskov to Zarubin. Zelensky, 1 hour ago, stating again, we still stand behind for now almost 2 months, a 30-day full ceasefire, and then we can have a talk. So you see Peskov saying, hey, you're not accepting our 3-day ceasefire for the holidays. This shows your terroristic regime and validates the continuation of our special military operation. So that's where we're at military-wise, and all that's within the last hour.
I will add to all of that a bit of background. So what you were talking about, let's go back first of all to JD Vance, in case people don't know this. So JD Vance has come out, and in this talk here, he said they hate each other so much, Ukraine and Russia. If you have an hour-long conversation with either side, the first 30 minutes is about them complaining about some historical grievance from 4 or 5 years ago. Which is just, I think, pretty insulting, by the way, from JD Vance, pretty terrible. But then there's this article that's come out where Vance has said US believes that Russia is demanding too much in negotiations over Ukraine, as if like, what, finally you've got there? So JD Vance saying that, you know, the Russians are just demanding too much, to which Trump then replied, Trump weighed in on JD Vance's comment that Russia's asking too much in talks. Maybe he's right. We're getting to the point where some decisions have to be made. I'm not happy about it, which is really revealing in itself, because he's not happy about it because he's going to have to be harsh to Russia. And he doesn't want to be harsh to Russia. I mean, this is where we're at, completely predictable, but it's about freaking time, mate, because Russia have been taking the mickey out of the American position, really, and out of the Trump administration for too long. So that is long overdue. On the war front, just to give people an understanding of what's going on, when Greg was talking about what's going on in Konstantinivka, we have Bakhmut, Chasiv Yar, Konstantinivka. You've got the T0504 highway that comes from Chasiv Yar through to Konstantinivka. And then it comes down here, does a dogleg around a place called Malinivka, where there's a junction there, and then shoots off to Pokrovsk, right? The Russians have been broadly stopped south of Pokrovsk. It's really tough fighting. Ukraine has been pushing back. Russians have been now pushing back on the Ukrainians. But it is a bit of one half dozen the other there to some degree. But further to the east, between Pokrovsk and basically up here in Chasiv Yar, the Russians have been making loads of progress in an area that they haven't really moved previously, this pocket around here. They've been pushing in Toretsk and New York for ages. The Ukrainians then pushed them back in Toretsk and New York, but now the Russians appear to be again gathering momentum, pushing back there. But worryingly, they're moving up this highway, the T0504 highway. They've got over the junction there, and they are pushing towards Konstantinivka from the south, which is what Greg was just saying there. So it's not Konstantinivka was always going to be next on the agenda after Chasiv Yar fell, but Chasiv Yar has stubbornly kept going. Like, the Ukrainians have done an amazing job to hold on to that.
Elevation has helped there immensely.
Yeah, and they were supposed to have lost that by the summer, and it never happened. We're into the next year, right? And they're still holding on there. So the Russians are possibly thinking about taking Konstantinivka from the south, or at least, you know, filling in all of this area. And it is all very worrying there. And of course, you've still got the issues down here on towards Kurakova and then Velika Novosilka. And then there are rumors that the Russians are amassing in Zaporizhia and might be, you know, trying to push to the city of Zaporizhia, possibly. You know, even you could even worry about them going across the reservoir there. So, you know, rumors about this, and
well, it's not rumor. It's not rumors.
And Liman as well.
It's not rumors. They have amassed some equipment there south of Zaporizhia, where you were just showing. They've also amassed some landing boats down towards Kherson. They want to get on that side of the river down there.
Yeah.
Good luck. Yeah. Good luck. Good luck on trying to get up towards Zaporizhia. It's some of the most well-defended area between basically they're at Energodar, Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, wrapping around. We're down in that area all the time. So it's tough. It's very tough, but Ukraine is stabilized there very well. The problem is, unfortunately, when Russia made their push up in the Sumy region, Ukraine had to rotate a little help up there. It wasn't overwhelming, but it was enough where it's given Russia a little bit of ground there. And I'm just calling it like the halfway mark. I call it the hook in the road. Been on that road so many times between Mirnograd and Pokrovsk,
right.
and I call it the hook in the road in Konstantinivka. The big deal is that's where Ukraine needs to defend the most, because logistically that's tough for Ukraine, because guys, above that, you look up there and you say, well, Ukraine controls everything above it. Okay, they do, and they're defended well, but the infrastructure has been destroyed. Those villages are leveled. Those towns, the homes are destroyed. The roads are in bad condition. It's just, when people look at the maps, and Jonathan, you both of you guys have been there, and I've actually had Johnny down on the front, and it's so much worse now than when I had you there earlier, Johnny Pierce. It's like, if you could see Pokrovsk right now, it would blow your mind how much devastation. I took you through Pokrovsk. Yes.
And that was when Avdiivka, it was all back along the original 2014 line, pretty much. You're fighting out in Avdiivka. We drove through Pokrovsk. There, we had a nice little time, like at the sign of Pokrovsk with the raccoon, and that was all, quite away from the front line. And now
I'll tell you like this: Pokrovsk is starting to look like Bakhmut.
Bakhmut, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Yeah,
but Ukraine's holding. They're holding. The issue is there, since you're looking at the map, and we'll go into other topics, I'm sure. Russia really pushing hard right now to get at least a boot on the ground in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Okay, so they've got boots on the ground in the Kharkiv region.
Earlier
they've got boots on the ground in Sumy region. Of course, Lugansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, Crimea is a completely different topic, but connected, of course. And now they're trying to put a boot on the ground in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast,
which is here, I believe, around this area.
Even close. Yeah, just a kilometer and a half. They're a kilometer and a half over from where they're at their closest position right now.
Yeah. So around here, so that area is Dnipropetrovsk, and it goes up into there. Yeah,
and that would be Pavlograd, cities of Pavlograd and the city of Dnipro.
Yeah.
Yes.
So worrying stuff. And sorry, I know Jonathan Fink hasn't spoken for some time, but I just the one thing I did want to say, I'd be interested in your thoughts about this, guys, is that you mentioned Ukraine being up for the 30-day ceasefire and Russia being up for the 3-day ceasefire, and Ukraine coming back and saying, hey, you guys aren't serious. We're talking about the 30-day ceasefire. Do you think that Ukraine are actually quite desperate for a 30-day ceasefire? As in, are they on the ropes to the point where that would benefit them more than it would Russia? And is that why they want it? Or is it more of a PR thing about looking to be the ones that are serious about peace and showing that Russia aren't serious about peace? Or maybe both?
I'd go for that option, although obviously Greg has a lot more experience of seeing those places. I mean, infinitely more. But I just want to throw in there, the battlefield is transparent, given the sheer scale of technology that's being brought to wait. Now, I know military people say, well, infantry is still important, etc. But there's an extraordinarily rapid technological advance, which means that this transparent battlefield dramatically exposes Russian armor as they try to advance in these places. So yes, they're inching forward, but it all comes at incredible cost. I just want to throw that in there. So my guess actually is that Ukraine is doing this for, to be seen as doing the right thing.
Ukraine doesn't need a 30-day ceasefire. Ukraine wants to win the war, and Ukraine is trying to build a coalition, and Ukraine is a nation of ethics and moving to the West and trying to build proper relationships with the European Union and the United States of America and many other nations. And they are demonstrating that they want peace. They want to find a diplomatic way to end the war. That doesn't mean give up anything. That means come to a position where we can talk. But it's such a strategic move on Zelensky's part. He is the one, and his team and the Ukrainians, you know, they always make these jokes about Donald Trump playing 5D chess. Listen, he couldn't, well, forget it. That's a different topic. The Ukrainians, President Zelensky, it was the smartest move ever to say, we fully want an unconditional 30-day ceasefire across all the lines. We completely agree with you, the United States of America. And all that has done has shown the world that it is Russia, as you said at the beginning, Jonathan Fink, Russia wants war. They need war. It validates Vladimir Putin. It validates that evil regime. So when Ukraine did that, that was a brilliant move because it validated that it is Ukraine that actually wants to push towards a peace and towards communication and find a way to get their land back and to have reconstruction. And we know none of that's going to happen, but that's why it was such a good move, because now it puts the onus on Russia, and we're seeing that. So for me, I can tell you right now, Zelensky signed a thing yesterday where Ukraine's ready to start exporting weapons to build their economy. Listen, I mean, they basically shut down Western Russia today. They basically shut down Western Russia. At one time, there were 7 airports closed, and the airports were not being struck. They just had that many. They had that many drones in the air, and Volgograd is been renamed Stalingrad for this victory celebration. A couple of hours ago, they took down the sign saying Volgograd and put up the signs that said Stalingrad. So they're having fun. And we already know they're renaming the airport Stalingrad Airport because they were asked. And listen, they'll probably rename the city back to Stalingrad as well. But I've got the video of them putting the signs up and cheering. We've renamed it Stalingrad for the celebration. The reality,
historical revisionism. Yeah.
The reality is Ukraine over the last 48 hours or so has literally crippled Russia.
Breaking news update on this, because, you know, when you've got 60,000, probably more than that eventually, people stuck in airports, when you've got 350 plus flights delayed, it's a knock on to that as well. So that plane then can't go to there to then pick up the people to go to there. And all of this is part of this mosaic of very intricate planning for airlines. And it's not only going to ruin things inside, you know, Russia, it's going to have knock-on effects, but it's going to hurt their economy. It's going to hurt the victory parade preparation.
Think of the dignitaries being held up, you know, the diplomats and ambassadors and leaders who won't even get into the country.
Okay, both of you been in Moscow. Both of you been in Moscow, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've all been in Moscow. I've been in Moscow many times. There's lots of the highway infrastructure there, and there's tunnels that go under the ground where the cars. I'm watching video. Oh, they're stuck everywhere, and Ukraine's trolling them, going, I guess, well, you're getting carbon monoxide poisoning. Turn your cars off, at least if you're stuck in the tunnels. You know, the entire infrastructure. Taxis are unorderable. Mobile communications are down, and that is also due to take out that ability for Ukraine to latch onto those towers and to those signals the same way that Russia does in Ukraine. I'm being fair. They both are very good at doing this. Let's be honest, using these drones.
That's it. Hideous, isn't it?
They're just sitting there. So
choking.
Ukraine doing an incredible job. And here's what's so beautiful about it. They're not blowing up civilian buildings and killing grandmas. They are crippling this nation right now with strategic strikes and pressure.
It wouldn't surprise me if some of those drones sent towards Moscow today were just decoys as well. Like, all they needed to do was not actually try and damage Moscow, not actually try and hit any particular, strategic target, but send drones to cripple they're so worried about the parade. It's just perfect. And they've built up over the last week to actually also destroy. And something I guess maybe the information will emerge, maybe history will let us know. But the last week, and in fact, I'd say the last month, and Greg, I'll be interested, particularly from yourself, because you probably keep more of an eye on this, but there's been very little what's called BDA, battle damage assessment, from strikes into Russia for the last month or two, maybe. There's a very good OPSEC. I think the Russians have tightened their OPSEC, and we're actually getting more imagery coming out of Ukraine when Ukraine's getting struck at the moment than we are from Russia. Yet we are hearing from the Russians themselves that the Ukrainians are sending hundreds of drones a night at the moment, like 100+ drones. Last night they claimed they shot down 524 drones plus a bunch of Neptunes plus. Now, if that's even remotely true, there's an absolute ton of drones flying into Russia, and there's undoubtedly a ton of things being hit. Now, occasionally we are getting news about certain facilities being struck, but I am hoping, and this may be hopium, but I'm hoping and thinking that the Ukrainians have probably done a great deal of damage over the last week that we haven't really heard about, and the Russians might be hurting behind the Iron Curtain somewhere. So, yeah,
at the minimum, they have shown Russia what they can do. Russia knows what they can do, but now they've shown Russia what they can do, and they've shown the European Union, Great Britain, they've shown the United States. And this is why I think when you start seeing JD Vance come out and say those people hate each other, and then you see Trump saying hearing about that statement from Vance going, well, we're just getting to the end, it's just going to be over, and we're going to have to wash our hands of it, basically, because they're just going to fight on. What did he say? I'm so disappointed. Or something. It was some phrase. I've got the video over here. He said 2 or 3 times. The bottom line is, we've known this. Ukraine is defending their homeland, and Ukraine is becoming the most technologically advanced military on the planet. I mean, my own great country, we can't even keep an F-18 on the deck of our of our carrier, of our flagship carrier.
2 of them have gone down.
Are you kidding
me? And another
me?
one was shot down, I think, prior to that, like a month ago.
I'm sorry, I'm a U.S. Navy grandson. I'm like, what? Okay, so, and that's a completely different, conversation and topic. But the reality is, as tough as it is, and today, with tough call, I'm learning about the loss of my friends there that have just given their life. It's tough, but the reality is, Ukraine's doing really, really good. That's a great comment from Beatty Clan. Ukraine is fueled by purpose. And I think, just from who I talk to, what I talk to, and what they tell me, that Ukraine has a lot more surprises in store for Russia. And I personally know, when you see things and you go, oh, wow, that's amazing. Or, one of us, you guys on YouTube are reporting, well, look at this technology that Ukraine is now using. Listen, we're already months late when we're saying that, okay? Because when I was last in Kyiv, Zhenya and I were in with the top dude in the military for drones. And we were in his office. I was 50 meters from Zelensky's office in the same building, right down the hallway. And Zelensky was gone. I was going to be able to meet Zelensky if he'd have been there, but he was gone. So I'm sitting there, we're sitting this guy, and we're having meetings and talking and chatting. And he goes, well, let me go over here and show you a few things. I just, you're sworn to secrecy, which we are. And he goes, coming to a battlefront near you, October 2025. So, and he showed it to us, and it was like, holy moly. Okay, so, and I know Ukraine is planning ahead for this war, and things we're seeing. I I believe this is the week that's going to tell us. But with this victory thing going and all the rhetoric happening, looks like the Americans may be walking, or backing up. However that will look, I think we definitely going to know come the 10th of May where we're headed.
Vance's rhetoric is interesting because our initial reaction is we're appalled. We're appalled at how tone deaf and crass and all the other things, it is. It's heartless, it's classless, it's all of these things, and it's just plain dumb. But listen to the actual phrases, though, about the disappointment. Listen to the stuff like, well, I guess we've got a problem here. Rewind a few weeks, and it was Ukraine has no cards. Ukraine has no cards. They believe they backed the right horse. They believe they backed a winner, and they're going to cash in. This week, they've noticed that their horse is fit for glue and is not going to make it across the finish line. They've been sold a pup. They've been taken down the road. They've been coerced into believing an absolute lie. They've been Potemkin facaded by Putin. I think that's what's going on. They're not Russian assets. They just thought, like, we're backing a dead cert here. What is Ukraine? I mean, it's nothing. It's nobody. It's not a sovereign country. It's an invented thing. They consumed all of this nonsense. And now even they can no longer avoid the reality that they've backed an old nag that is about to expire. And Ukraine is pulling ahead.
Interesting. It's another thing to throw in here. Trump was previously saying that former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau led the effort to have Russia removed from the G8, even though that happened before Justin Trudeau came to power, apparently. But anyway, Trump suggested Putin invaded Ukraine in 2022 because Russia was expelled from the G8 after its invasion of Crimea. Because of that, maybe millions of people are dying. Sort of blaming that, the war on that. But and he's made moves or made sounds towards like wanting Russia back in the G8. The present G7 to include Russia again. But interestingly, I don't know if this is Mark Carney. In conversation with, is it Canada is still the head of the G7 at the moment on that rotating leadership. But Trump has reversed his position on Russia joining the G7 economic group. US President Trump cited bad timing in his latest comments about Russia's potential return to G7, contradicting his earlier position on the matter. It could be, as ever with Trump, the last person he speaks to, and it could well be that Mark Carney actually told him what for in a way about Russia and the G7.
He thought he could bully everyone into accepting it, and now he realizes he can't. Because my eyes are naked, I can't see what Greg held up there.
You don't have to. Interesting, because prior to our live stream, I was working on some other things in preparation for what we do, support and YouTube and video and updates and translates and you name it. And I wrote down 2 or 3 things I wanted to make sure I discussed with you guys. And you segued perfectly to this, Mr. Pierce. About 3 hours ago, probably when he was walking around with Zarubin, Peskov did make an official statement about the G7. And Peskov said, and I'm quoting, as of now, Russia is not interested in pursuing returning to the G7 to make it the G8 because the center of economic development for the world has now shifted. So we have no desire now to be partnering initially with Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK, and USA. We are looking to China and Brazil and India, the BRICS, of course. So interesting, Peskov did make that very statement today. Yes, so right. The timing is the same.
May I just to split this up a little bit because it'll take too long at the end, do some thanks now? Is that okay,
let's
guys?
do it, man. I've got some as well. I know you've got them all there.
So we have Kevin Force, thank you for the ATP Geopolitics memberships, total legend.
Sorry, Johnny. I also need to say F. Oink, a great Hungarian supporter of Ukraine and thought we had lost him. He had lost power for a couple of weeks. So glad to see him back. Before the live stream started, he gifted 50 memberships to my channel. So thank you.
Wow.
F-Wink.
Super kind. Petra Olsen on her not smoking anymore.
Swedish non-smoking initiative.
Big hugs to Ukraine. So thank you on behalf of Greg there. Johnny Nevergard. This is for Greg as well, I presume.
Norwegian Island Dweller.
Yep, Hope Train Pete. Hello, Hope Train. So thank you, Johnny. Michael Vujar, thank you for 5 ATP Geopolitics memberships. Super
Pause.
cool.
Michael, he was a big help for me last night when I went live on India and Pakistan. By the way, they're striking each other again right now.
Yeah, I just saw. Yeah. I almost mentioned that. Yeah, Petra Olsen for myself as well. Thank you. With love to Ukraine. So thank you for on behalf of me. And I guess this might be for, I can't tell exactly, but that might be for Jonathan Fink or another one for Greg. So thank you, Petra.
That's Mr. Fink.
Whether Witkoff thought, boy, you have an optimistic worldview, Jonathan Fink. Whether Witkoff thought so, he doesn't think. F-Wink is saying there. So thanks for that Hungarian love. And we have Don Cornu. Russia is reeling. Slava Ukraini. I hope they are reeling. I hope they are. And then gifting 10 Greg Terry memberships. Super kind. Stephen Bendal, thanks for the Norwegian love, my man. Hope you are well. Ida, some more Norwegian love here. Thank you, all three. You are truly heroes. Well, I don't think I am, but there are certainly people out there who are.
Yeah.
And sadly, Greg has lost some that he knew. So, but thank you, Ida. That's very kind of you. Haji, I presume for Greg, but I don't know. Flex Seal, broken beers, plumber's crack. I don't know who you're talking about. Oh my.
And I do need, this was probably an earlier statement that you missed also. F-Wink, he's been a crew member on the My Hope train, on our Hope train for 4 months. He said, Greg, change the lights. The glare is blinding me. And that's in regard to
that's what you have, right. I see. I was wondering. I was like, the lights are all right. Will the retirement of Kadyrov cause major problems for Putin, says asked Paul Gilbert, both internally and on the front. What do you guys think?
I talked today with my good friend Konstantin about this one. What he said is fascinating, because Kadyrov clearly wanted to make a point, and he wanted to make a point just a few days before Victory Day. Imagine how busy Putin is. She's arriving. There's all this stuff going on. There's drones taking out infrastructure. Is Chechnya top of his list? Did it even come to his top 10 at this time? No, it absolutely doesn't. But he made time to quite visibly meet Kadyrov face to face at the drop of a hat. That shows, I think, weakness. It shows how much dependency he has on Kadyrov. So the last thing he's going to want is for Kadyrov to retire. And we have to also, where's Kadyrov going to retire to? His sons are not going to take over.
Well, the grave, I think, really.
Well, it's a suicide mission if his sons were to take over. So clearly, according to Konstantin, he is going to be trying to negotiate an exit for his entire family and security guarantees. However, Kadyrov has had people whacked right across the world, including in the Middle East, including in Saudi and places where theoretically he would end up. He knows perfectly well that he's probably not safe in those places. So I think this is a delicate negotiation going on about what kind of guarantees could be provided for him and his family for the next phase. For Putin's part, he's almost certainly going to try and persuade him to stay on. Kadyrov also is going to be trying to make sure that the person who takes over Chechnya is someone that he believes he can place trust in, who isn't going to pursue him and his family to the ends of the earth. Putin is not showing signs that he's going to commit to anybody publicly or let Kadyrov decide who's going to take over. So there's a big old political game there. I would call it more of a knife fight than traditional politics. But certainly the optics of this are extraordinary, that Putin should meet Kadyrov in this week of all weeks. But don't expect his resignation soon. It hasn't been formally announced, and I think there's a lot more, bargaining going on there. But if Kadyrov did go, if Chechnya started to fall, that certainly would significantly weaken Putin's regime, no doubt. And it takes away one of the really big cudgels he has to threaten anybody who steps out of line with, you know, the Chechen warlords and assassins who can be unleashed on them.
Yeah, I agree with Jonathan's perspective there completely. Today, Vladimir Putin is meeting nonstop with world leader after world leader after world leader after world leader. I'm watching them go unfold over here. The biggest news, of course, tomorrow is dedicated to Xi Jinping. But today he did sign a new agreement similar to the agreements that Russia has in place with North Korea and Iran with, drum roll please, Venezuela. So Maduro, of course, that's, you know, South America. It's not as close as North Korea and Iran.
Something today, didn't they? Yeah.
Yes, they signed basically the same types of agreements with that he has with Iran. So you just see that the polarization, and this is maybe I ask you two guys, because, you know, politically we see things differently in some things, and other things we completely agree. You know, I mean, the closest thing Johnny Pearson I have is, you know, how devout of a Christian he is. You know, I'm doing my best to keep up with him. But the reality,
I can't stop Christianing me.
the reality is, I believe the world is becoming more polarized every day and divided in this division line that even Putin and Xi talked about early on in the war. After 2022, that fall, they talked about, we are moving to a new world order, and you will see it unfold over the next few years, where it will not be American driven, dollar driven, et cetera, et cetera. And we're really, and I'm not a doomsdayer, I'm not a naysayer, I'm a fighter, but the reality is we're seeing it. And unfortunately, while Russia is making relationships, I'm sorry, let's just call it the way it is. Relationships. We're coming into agreements with North Korea. We're coming into Putin can't even wait to go to bed tonight so he can get up tomorrow and talk with Xi Jinping all day, because he wants to salivate over that relationship with China. And we need to watch what unfolds from those meetings tomorrow. But China, North Korea, India, and the BRICS, you keep going on. But unfortunately, what is happening, VD Hertz, I'm coming to the economics now. What is happening is the United States is completely missing the ball. And where relationships are being built with Russia and those nations, the United States, led by Donald Trump, is doing the best we can do to destroy every relationship we have internationally. So the coalitions are changing. The strengths are going in different places, and that, of course, includes economics as well as military strategies, and the list goes on. But we are destroying every relationship we have, and that's a point I think that we're missing, and Russia's not missing.
When you put it that way, if Trump wasn't clearly so, you know, a few sandwiches short of a picnic, as they say, one could almost think that this was by design, deconstructing American power in such a precipitous way, at such speed and at such scale, and with such thoroughness. Let's face it, it seems more than accidental.
Well,
and China, Russia, this whole thing, I think they're playing good cop, bad cop. Russia's the bad cop guy, right? He's going to really mess you up. So you're going to have to go and be friends with this other guy over here, because China, they don't invest in extremist forces. They don't invest in far right nutters and far left nutters. They tend to sort of say, look, you can have your sovereign democracy and little toys and whatever, but come on, if you're our friends, then we can keep the school bully at bay, and you can keep your little bit of lunch money and whatever. But I think there's a tremendous divide and conquer here going on a global scale. And I think they're in cahoots on this game. I think they absolutely are. And it's emblematic. Just this clip popped up, and I'd love to hear what you guys say. But especially, you know, Jonathan, on this one, AfD in Germany. You have the US regime trying to beat Germany up for protecting its democracy and keeping an eye on extremist forces. Let's bear in mind, this is the country that gave rise to Nazism. So I think they're well within their rights to try and keep an eye on extremist forces. The AfD in the European Parliament today refused to even stand up, let alone sing the European anthem to commemorate the end of the Second World War. It's German politicians essentially refusing to commemorate the end of Nazism, and a US administration saying, you got to listen to these guys, right? You know, they've got their First Amendment rights. Never mind the extremism that they represent.
It is, yeah. I've been worrying about the state of play in Europe for some time. A lot of my videos concern the rise of particularly right-wing populism, and the reason I don't concentrate too much on left-wing populism is actually because it hasn't had much purchase around. There aren't any real left-wing populist governments around the world, or movements that have had much traction. So the right-wing populism that you see in AfD, in Rassemblement National in France, in Giorgia Meloni's three-party coalition, in Reform UK, and in MAGA republicanism, which I think is part of the same thing. I think those are all part of the same political world, and that's why you see JD Vance and Elon Musk bigging up AfD and bigging up all of these players that are really divisive in Europe, because I think the Trump administration wants the destruction of the EU in the same way that Putin does. They both have the same goal in mind, and
that would then support Jonathan's conjecture, or that there's more to this than meets the eye. And I listen.
Yeah.
I can't believe. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it straight. How ignorant Donald Trump is.
Yeah, this is something I've been talking about loads. That there are people around him that have the brains, but he doesn't, and he gets just carried along on the shoulders of people like Stephen Miller and Russell Vought and et cetera, et cetera. But
you would think, well, I'm going to go back and now support Jonathan Fink's supposition. You can't be that dumb, can you? I mean, really?
Well, Ambassador,
I know he's a marketer, but you can't be that dumb to actually, one example, you allow, I know you didn't do it, I guess, but you allow the image of yourself to pose as the Pope.
Yeah.
And it is posted on your personal Truth Social, which you control on your phone. It is posted on the White House official Twitter X. And you say, oh, I don't know nothing about it. I just know Melania and I saw it last night. No, you're lying. You're absolutely lying to the world. Of course you saw it. And you just can't be that dumb. But I guess he is.
Yeah, it was I can't remember, was it Michael McFaul? Here it is. So Michael McFaul is a former ambassador to Russia from the US, right? And we just had Mark Carney meet with Trump in the Oval Office, and Trump, and I've got a whole video on this coming out. I've recorded it much earlier today. It's coming out. I'll probably schedule it for the middle of the night UK time.
Did you say that you and Trump have a video coming out together?
No, I have a video of this interaction with Carney.
I will stay up to watch that one.
I've done an analysis of the interaction between Carney and Trump because I found it fascinating, and it's almost what wasn't said, or the facial expressions, and how well Carney navigated that minefield. And he was just absolutely brilliant. But the one time that Carney fact checked Trump, it was about 8 minutes after Trump actually made the claim, and that might have helped. Whereas, Zelensky fact-checked Trump straight away, and if you do that, you've got this. But he kind of maybe let it settle and then came back to it and said, so Trump had said that we don't do much business with Canada. Canada's not very important, essentially, to us economically. And Carney came back and said, respectfully, we are America's biggest client. And the fact is that's exactly right. So Canada is responsible for buying 16.9% of the US exports. And Trump should know that. He doesn't have to know the numbers, but he should know that Canada is the biggest buyer of American stuff. So to sit there and say Canada doesn't buy much stuff off us is just not only empirically wrong, but it's 100% wrong. It's just really wrong. And Michael McFaul says, I wish our president would prepare a little harder for these meetings. His staff should also try harder to get their boss ready so that he is not embarrassed or is not embarrassing like this. And I keep talking about how Trump is fundamentally ignorant. And you listen to people like Fiona Hill as a national security advisor back in Trump 1.0 that was on phone calls with Trump when he was talking to Putin and et cetera, and she said he was woefully unprepared. Like, Trump does not prepare himself when he goes into any meeting or anything, because he's got this fallacy of invincibility where he just thinks, I'm the number one, I don't need to learn anything because I'm just going to wing it and I have the skills and I'm bombastic enough and I am the number one awesome human in the world. And so he just thinks he's going to nail it every time, and then he just embarrasses himself, but he doesn't really get embarrassed. He will just maybe get angry if someone calls him out, but he doesn't learn from these situations. And I don't think the people around him have the guts to correct him ever and to put him straight, and they just let him go for it because actually he's still usable. It's people like Stephen Miller around him that are the really bloody dangerous people that I think need to be watched out for. But anyway.
Well, I will tell you this, that's not even the most disgusting statement he made during that interview. And what I don't understand is, why isn't this, called out? I know, Twitter's full X, whatever it is, calling it out. But why are we not at the level where we can really see the ignorance? And I will give you the best example. It happened in the meeting with Carney, and, he's sitting there and goes, I love Canada. And my mama's family's from Canada. So, I've got some Canadian blood in me. Canada's also got that great hockey player. Yeah. Wayne Gretzky, the greatest hockey player of all time. Wayne, he's Canadian. So we love Canada and our friends. Now here in Washington, D.C., we have a great Canadian hockey player. In fact, he just beat Wayne Gretzky's record at that great Canadian. That's Ovechkin, who is a Russian who stood on the ice in Washington, D.C. and said, I love Russia, when he was being congratulated for the goals. Donald Trump thinks he's Canadian. Come on, man. You can't be that dumb.
And it's just where, so what I think is the most revealing thing for me is when it was Bukele, the El Salvadorian president, was in the Oval Office, and Trump was questioned on the Supreme Court ruling, and he deferred to Stephen Miller and said, we won that one, right? And then Stephen Miller said, yeah, we won 9-0. And the Supreme Court did this. And he starts berating Caitlin Collins standing next to him and goes off on one about how they won how the Trump administration effectively won that Supreme Court ruling 9-0. But it was entirely the opposite. They lost that 9-0. But what that told you is that lies, just overt, 100% lies, appear to work, and that Trump is beholden to Stephen Miller. So, and then he repeated what Stephen Miller said in a Time interview, and it's in the transcript there. And in other words, the person that's running the White House, in my opinion, is Stephen Miller. I did a whole video on this the other day. I quite a bit of evidence to support this. He's the one that you have to worry about. And interestingly, Mark Carney, in his speech after the Oval Office interaction, he went and did a presser. And in that, he said, and all the people that were in the meeting, there were all the important people like Stephen Miller. And so Stephen Miller is the right-hand man. You've got lots of people now saying Stephen Miller is the right-hand man of Trump. And when Trump was asked in the interview with Kristen Welker on NBC Meet the Press, Kristen Welker said, your national security advisor, Mike Waltz, has now been moved. And he said, yeah, he's still great. He's just going to do a really good job at the UN. She said, who are you going to put in there? We've heard that Stephen Miller's going to be put in there. And Trump said, no, that's too much of a downgrade for Stephen Miller. And Trump, the national security advisor, who's your go-between between the Secretary of State and the DOD and all of and foreign policy, tying it all together. No, Stephen Miller's too good for that. and that's more evidence. That's Trump himself admitting that Stephen Miller is at the heart of everything. And I'm just going to finish by saying Stephen Miller is an evil fascist. And that's the problem with the White House, is you've got Stephen Miller at the heart of everything.
Tell us what you really think. Breaking news coming in. I'm reading the Russian news right now. It's 3 minutes after the 3-day ceasefire. And the news coming out of Russia is the 3-day ceasefire announced by Putin has come into effect officially. Kyiv did not give any notification of support for Putin's initiative. They only continue to say that they will agree to a 30-day agreement, and we expect them to disrupt the 3-day ceasefire.
But not they have done, but they expect them to do so.
They expect them to, yes. So that's coming out 4 minutes ago.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how that's going to go. Jonathan Fink, did you want to say anything before I move on to some more thanks? Ooh. No. Greg, you were going to say something?
Yeah.
I was just going to say,
I'll come back in a minute with one. There's another one. You go through the feed and it's just endless nonsense from idiots. But
I was just going to say this, Johnny, if you wouldn't mind. There was an event that happened today in the United Nations in New York City that concluded with a standing ovation.
Yeah,
and I have a video. This is not a joke, guys.
I know exactly what it is. It's the pianists and the Russian choir.
Yeah, I got about a 20-second clip there for you. It's right there, loaded up. I loaded it in the thing. You can play that one.
Okay. This is in Washington.
No, New York City.
Yeah, sorry,
United Nations building.
I meant New York. New York.
Yeah, New York City today.
Absolutely.
Let's just celebrate. Let's just celebrate right there in the United Nations.
Just absolutely outrageous that. Blonde Bombsheller, 50 Greg Terry Experience memberships, insanely generous for
Thank
her.
you, BB. She does so much work behind the scenes, man. And she is in Ukraine right now, working hard. Had some meetings today.
Still there.
Yeah,
she's there for ages.
She's a legend.
Pyro Kurt Brubacher.
Yes.
It's great to see all three of you together on one stream. Sorry for your or our loss, Greg.
Thank you, Kurt. I appreciate that, my friend. It was a tough day. Tough day.
Good evening, guys. Thank you, Rudy Hermans. Nice to see you together again. Jonathan, don't forget to mention the car for Ukraine action. Yes, Rick Ukrainian is catching up. Yeah, I saw that. Slightly worrying. Thank you, Rudy. Not worrying. It's all good, of course. But need to keep ahead of the game.
You are so competitive. Unbelievable.
No, I'm not. No, you.
So competitive.
F Oink, some grievance from 5 years ago, Crimea annexed. I'm not sure what that's with reference to, F Oink, but thank you on behalf of Craig there.
That's referring back to the Vance comment from earlier, wasn't it? That whenever he speaks to Russia and Ukraine, they've got these grievances they bring up. Yeah, from a war that's been going on for 11 years, if not hundreds of years. Yeah, there's going to be a few grievances, like Holodomor, etc.
BT Clan. I was pleased that Mark Carney didn't take Trump's bait about Chrystia Freeland in the Oval Office. DJT is such a child fool. The reason I put that up there is I do talk about this. So Trump, I don't think, was trying to bait Carney, but he was just slagging off Chrystia Freeland, who was a previous finance minister, ran for the head of the Liberal Party. That race was won by Mark Carney, and he obviously won the prime ministership. But what Trump might not have known is that Mark Carney is the godfather of Chrystia Freeland's child. And so they are close. And Donald Trump slagged her off and said, you know who I'm talking about, don't you? But I think he meant as in, like, you know, you'd be in agreement that Chrystia Freeland, just like Justin Trudeau, blah, blah, blah. And actually, Mark Carney there was a look on his face that was just very, very revealing. But he didn't rise to the bait. And Mark Carney he said the right things on a very few occasions he had to speak, and on all the other occasions he bit his tongue. And just, you know, it's about picking your fights, and I think Carney did a really good job to show that was the correct way forward. John Doe here says, check out Mercer's visits to France and Poland. So yeah, he's been on the visits today. He's now sort of eventually hitting the ground with some pace, and soon to Ukraine. So we hear he's going to be going to Ukraine soon with Taurus. Fingers crossed that will happen. The drones over Moscow are tying up resources, which is creating favorable opportunities elsewhere on parade day. Momentum is building. So that's some positive outlook there from John Doe, supporting one of you two. So thank you on one of you two to John Doe. We've lost Mr. Fink. And we got Julian Roster. Thank you for this, very kind. The UK finally made a statement that they should prepare for war with Russia. The EU, so just for those who don't know, the UK government under Starmer has asked for a preparedness report out to prepare us for war with Russia in the eventuality that it happens. We need to obviously have things in place. There's also a defense strategy revision taking place. So that's all going to tie up together. He then says the EU should also come out with the same statement, but what is the likelihood the US will? Interesting. I don't think the US can even conceive of going to war with Russia at the moment. But I'm sure there are contingencies in the Department of Defense.
I'm not even sure the United States would do anything if China went after Taiwan. I just don't think we're going to sling some missiles at the Houthis and make some bold statements. But I don't know. Is that Jonathan coming back in here?
He's trying to, but
okay.
I think he's got some issues. I'll take him out until
I'll wait for that because I want to ask you guys a question.
I'm back.
Okay.
Great. So I'm watching right now. There's no air alarms in Ukraine. And Russia reiterating, now Peskov has come out and said the truce is initiated. It will go until 0000 May the 11th. And that's it. But if Ukraine breaks it, we will respond accordingly. So
what would you do? What would you do?
That's what I'm going to ask you guys. Okay. I remind you, Russia's good at playing chess too. So now Ukraine has done all this destabilization. Now Russia comes back and says, hey, we're going ahead with our 3-day ceasefire. And right now it's quiet. Okay. What does Ukraine do?
I would leave it all night so they don't do any nocturnal, Shahed attacks. And then really early in the morning, I would send all the drones I possibly could at Russia and hit some key targets. Because I think if Russia really have pulled air defenses from, it'll be interesting to know whether Ukraine know where air defenses have been pulled to Moscow, if they have been pulled to Moscow, and I would just hit all those places if I possibly could, or stuff like that. I would, but it's difficult, isn't it? Because you would also be seen to be the bellicose member there, wouldn't you? You'd be seen to be the more warlike nation by breaking Russia's dictated truce. But yeah, I'd still do it. I think.
But let's get into the mind of Putin. What's the absolute? Let's go to the worst possible place. He's got all these world leaders in Moscow. Ukraine sort of strikes targets, but demonstrably isn't going to strike places where it's likely to hit any world leaders. So, and they haven't agreed to a ceasefire. It's unilateral. So, technically it doesn't really, it's not binding. What if Putin chose this moment to launch a tactical nuclear weapon? And he's got essentially a ton of world leaders as sort of semi-hostages in Moscow. You can't strike me back because look at what would happen. If you want to think about what the mind of a bully is, that's the behavior of a bully. Taking hostages, punching when you know that your opponent really can't strike back in the same way. Just throw that out there.
I did share on my video I released earlier, highlighting the Ukrainian strikes and the effects that they were having over the last 24 hours. There were 3 to 4 confirmations coming out of Russia and Ukraine where Putin, whether they're saber rattling or just, making their moves, said, okay, start identifying proper locations for an Oreshnik strike. So that would be the rhetoric. You know, it may not be a tactical nuke. It could be another Oreshnik. And listen, the Oreshnik's tough. It just is for Ukraine, especially now. It's obvious. It's very obvious that it's really interesting, to be quite honest with you, because we know that so many air defense units have been pulled back towards Moscow temporarily. They've also brought over 200 air defense systems from Belarus to help protect for this Victory Day celebration. And I share with people, it's not just the 9th. This is a week of them glorifying this. It's a long party. It's a week-long party there in Russia with many different events happening nonstop. But it culminates on that Victory Day parade. But they've pulled all this air defense there. We know that that means that they're going to be weaker in certain locations. And of course, Ukraine knows, I would think, where they have moved some air defenses. So it's a good time for Ukraine to strike. But at the same time, you guys are aware that, you know, Russia is being much more effective with their Shahed strikes. They also have begun to implement the ones that are turbojet propelled. They're going 400 to 500 kilometers an hour. They're also striking in waves now with the drone swarms, swarm them up on the Black Sea, bring them in over Odessa, bring one group in at 100 meters. They take all the gunnery and the air defense, and then the other group is above them at 2 kilometers, and they just dive them straight down. They're basically unstoppable. It's like carpet bombing, and we're seeing that. You know, it's indicative that, Ukraine also, I think both sides, to be quite honest, are deficient in air defense. I mean, just to call it straight. Let's just call it straight, because we always want to tell the truth. Both sides are. So,
yeah, because the Ukrainians, I did an analysis on this morning, Greg, where there was a Kiev Independent article and a Euromaidan Press article. One was talking about how they don't have enough air defense interceptor missiles, and 2 Patriot systems are being fixed, as the New York Times said. So there's that issue. And then the Euromaidan Press article was talking about the tactical changes of the Russians, and taking them high is surprisingly easy kind of tactic, but it's having quite an effect, because the Gepards and the Skynets were being so efficient before, and we're taking out so many Shaheds that they're actually struggling to hit them when they're up at 2 kilometers, even though they can, but it's just a lot harder. And the effectiveness of those otherwise what were really effective systems has been really changed. And then all the other things you said, and Chinese chips on Shaheds, and different tactics and swarming them. All of the above. It's interesting as well. They're saying helicopters now, because they're flying higher, they're using a lot more helicopters to shoot them down. That's been really effective, but they just don't have enough helicopters. So, when you're talking about that whole northern border region, where you can't put your helicopters too close to the border, they have to be somewhat further back, but actually there aren't enough helicopters. So there is that. I'm wondering what you guys think about Tetkino and just across the border into the Kursk Oblast, where the Ukrainians have attacked further to the west in Kursk, sort of on the way to Glushkovo. I don't know if you got anyway, the point is that they've done another attack into Kursk, but much smaller, I think. But there are now claims that they're encircling Tetkino, and actually it's looking slightly decent there for the Ukrainians. But then this is a really minor area of the map, so don't get too excited. What are your thoughts? Is that just a Victory the 9th kick in the shins for Putin? Victory Day parade kicking the shins for Putin?
Well, they had to do something, because Putin's already pushed the lies out that Donald Trump and his administration, others are believing, and that is that Ukraine was kicked out completely of Kursk and Belgorod, which neither of those were true ever. Right. But he can push that narrative, and then they'll believe it. So this was tactical for Ukraine. One of the reasons, so I know that area very well, been up there so many times. Russia has already evacuated Tutkino and a couple of other villages. They've pulled everybody back. Ukraine,
and Glushkovo as well.
Yes, and Ukraine does have it really kind of pinched there. What is important about that is because it'll give them an angle that they do not have if they can get there and get a foothold there, because Russia's pushing in, as you can see over there, into the Sumy Oblast. So they're trying to come in from a different direction. Okay, so I'll tell you this. It was a week ago. And the guys that I work with, my team said, Greg, and Johnny, we work a lot up there in Sumi on all that borders. We've had you up there very close. Our same guys are still up there, JP. Sumi's looking very, very difficult potentially for Ukraine on the ground as we're moving into summer. That's where I have to leave it. But anything they can do right now to stabilize the Sumi region, make an incursion into a different area of course to give another strong foothold there, whatever they can do, they're trying to, because Russia they're getting a little mojo up there on that Sumi. It's where your red dots are, but
over here. This is just what's going on at the moment.
But so that's why they would be interested getting there. Exactly. It's tough.
That blue line's a river. They've blown some bridges there.
Yeah, 2 bridges.
But this is where they're coming further to the south. Andrew Perpetua, I was talking to him about this. He said Sumi's quite interesting because actually this is a defender's not dream, but it's very much benefits the defender here. Lots of forests. Actually would be quite difficult for the Russians to make serious gains, but they're not far from Sumi to really, in fact, technically, if they had decent artillery, if the Russians had decent range on their artillery, this is Sumi's already pretty much in artillery range. But I don't think the Russians can. But I mean, Sumi is getting a battering at the moment.
That's the direction you've been in, JP, just so you know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've been on the border there.
And you've been there. You know what the terrain looks like. It is difficult. Now, Sumi is well protected, but the well protected side of Sumi is on the Sumi city itself. And then on the western side is where a lot of the fortifications, heavy fortifications as far as Dragon's Teeth and very well constructed defensive lines. But on the eastern side there, where Andrew Perpetua was talking about, it's good for Ukraine. It really is. The terrain is up and down. It's forestry, non-forestry. There's rivers. It's not a flat land at all. It's
a
lot of
elevation. They're having this success here, but you're hoping that actually they won't be able to, get too much further. But they are, still creeping onwards, arguably. So
but let's be honest, guys. Let's be honest. When today Zhenya had to called me and said, "Listen, we lost some guys," and then he showed me the video. I mean, it's bad. You watch your buddy get blown up by the video, the Russian video. The FPV drones that are on fiber optic, their ranges are extended. Seriously extended. It's not 5 and 10 kilometers. It's 15. It's 20, and it changes everything. So 50, it can go out to that. It can, but for like serious activity, we're at 15, 20 kilometers on FPV drones now, and it's a real problem. So if they come in on Sumi, you talk about, okay, they have an artillery deficiency. Yeah, they don't have a drone deficiency, and that makes that's what. It takes us right back to the Kherson story. It's been their human safari and their practice ground. That is where they have mastered. And listen, I'm not praising them. I can pull up 10 videos right now that have been given in the last week from Azov commanders. Yeah, it's 40. It can be up to 50, but really that 15 to 20 is where you're getting a lot of heavy work. But Azov commanders, 3rd Assault commanders saying, listen, man, we're good, but stop saying they're no good. Their drone work is good, and we're fighting a real war. They're meat grinders. They don't care about life. They're idiots. They're terrorists, but they have technology, and their drones are good. So
and I was I'm going to talk about it tomorrow in my military aid update, but it looks like the Euromaidan press was talking about new AI drones that the Russians appear to be putting together as well. So that's a particular worry. So exactly. You underestimate them at your peril. What about so actually, before I get to that question, thanks to Mark BizQ, who's a legend over in Canada. Ukraine once had 3 security guarantors under the Budapest Memorandum. All 3 let us down. Even now, at best, they'll have security guarantors, but no allies. There's a difference. Russia has allies, real allies. Will Ukraine ever have real allies? Yeah, I mean, you know, you can argue North Korea have been a better ally to Russia than anyone's been to Ukraine. Yeah, the world
I think
is
you'd
really
have to
fractured
take
place.
some issue with that, though. I think you'd have to take some issue with that. It's not that Britain and the US have done nothing. We know it's not enough for victory, but that's going too far, I think.
Well, so I'll tell you what the difference is, in my opinion. The difference is that it's easy to be an ally of Russia if you're a dictatorship, right? So North Korea and Iran can easily be allies of Russia. China can more easily be an ally of Russia. When you're talking about democracies, and the EU is a conglomeration of almost 30 democracies, and the US is still just about a democracy. The UK is a democracy. You are having to appeal to and appease your voters on usually 4 or 5 year cycles, and you're as good as your last election, and you're worried about your next election, and it then makes helping Ukraine a lot more difficult because you're playing with a public purse that is accountable to your taxpayers and to your electorate, and that's just very difficult. So in a perfect world, yeah, we'd be applying loads of money and resources and everything into Ukraine, but actually most people in the country don't care as much about that as we do, right? And but North Korea couldn't give a monkeys. It's like, yeah, we'll give whatever,
except that
whatever Russia pays us for.
Let's make the North. Yeah, pays. North Korea isn't donating or giving this stuff for free. They're getting paid.
Yeah, but they're getting paid, but they're happily actually,
and they're learning a lot about military techniques.
Yes, but they're also giving humans. So, like, the point is they can give human beings to Russia to go into a meat.
They're not. They're selling. They're selling humans.
Yeah, well, sorry,
giving humans. These are resources. Just like shells or something. They're
absolutely
different.
That's my point. Yeah. Sorry, I meant I should have said selling, but you get my point. Is that they're pushing these people towards Russia to use them as Russia wants. That would never happen with any other allies because we are democratic nations accountable. You know, our governments are accountable to their electorates, and we just wouldn't allow that. And so that goes to the point that it is easier for North Korea and Iran, but North Korea particularly, to be an ally of Russia than it is for any of us to be allies of Ukraine, because you will never get boots on the ground going to fight and die for Ukraine at the government's behest unless it got like considerably higher in the hierarchy of threat.
Wouldn't there be a difference also because you have an invading nation that is a terroristic regime versus a defending nation that is fighting not only a war against an invading terroristic nation, but they're also fighting a multifaceted war against propaganda, against corruption, and doing a bang-up job on all the fronts. They're fighting a multi-front war that, to this point, has been unfortunately mostly defensive just due to the sheer size of this war. So sometimes it's easier when you are conceptually a terrorist and your mentality is imperial, your mentality is just evil, and to partner with nations, it would seem that, oh yeah, okay, North Korea's there, and yeah, they're selling and they're receiving technology in return. We know that China is involved. We know, et cetera, et cetera. But in the big scheme of things, let's be honest, Ukraine has received a lot of stuff from the European Union, a lot of stuff from the UK, a lot of stuff from the United States. They receive technology, they receive satellite technology, they receive intelligence, and more importantly than that, they've got the love of millions and millions and millions of people around the world standing and fighting with them. I have never seen one flag of Russia on a bumper sticker on the freeway in the United States or waving in somebody's yard. No, I just see it inside the United Nations today when they're singing the national anthem and glorifying Putin on the global stage. But when it comes down to real people, no matter what you believe, what you think, where you're at, socially, economically, politically, religiously, it doesn't matter. You know, Ukraine's fighting for what is right. They are good. You can be a blind, deaf, and dumb, and you know they're fighting for what is right, and you know that Russia is led by an evil regime. And if you can't see that, whether you're Donald Trump or you're Xi Jinping, then you are demented and you have a moral problem within yourself. So I think it's just not that overt activity. I can't tell you when I'm there
Russia
and
doesn't
tractor
have real
trailers.
allies. Russia has alignment with other autocrats on certain issues that they find mutually beneficial. That's not real allies. This is killers prepared to tolerate each other because they have a common goal, but a heist or whatever it is. So I find that language completely unhelpful, and Putin wants Ukraine to believe it has no allies.
No, I disagree. I disagree because I think the anger comes from Mark. I think the anger comes from the US because the US has become that transactional, was an ally. The US was an ally, and then it's walked away to become transactional. So the US
doesn't speak for the rest of us. We could do a lot more, but that's not fair. It really is.
Okay.
It's demoralizing as well. I don't think demoralizing is helpful for Ukraine or anyone else. Putin will want us to be divided. He'll want us to be demoralized. I think that language that's
playbook number one.
Completely unhelpful.
So but I fully understand it. It's that feeling. I think because for me, like, and I've said this a number of times, we were so close. Like, all Trump needed to do was come in and whack up sanctions and continue giving aid and stop and not have stopped the 7 months of delay previously, by the way, as well. Those two things, like if Trump had just come in and kept the sanctions, increased the sanctions on Russia and given a ton of aid to Ukraine, everything could be different right now.
He didn't even have to give the aid. Do you know what, Jonathan?
It's that frustration.
He didn't even have to do that. He didn't even have to do that. All he had to do was come in and say, we're going to shut down the Grey Fleet. We're going to force Europe to stop buying Russian oil. We're going to tank the price of oil by negotiating with OPEC to produce a ton more. We're going to lean on Europe so they give the 300 billion over to Ukraine, and then we're going to sell them weapons with that. He had all the levers, and he didn't have to commit the US militarily at all.
And I think that's what underwrites this kind of anger, because I feel that. I honestly, in my darkest moments, I am seething with anger that you'll get a chance in a second, Chris, sorry. But I seethe with anger that we were so close, that he just took the wrong turn at that junction. He took the exactly wrong turn, and sometimes I beat myself up with like what could have been. It was so freaking close. Anyway, Greg, you want to say something?
Yes, I do. I completely concur with both of your viewpoints that you have. I understand both of you, but Mr. Fink, you stated that all Trump had to do, increase oil output, put pressure on the Ghost Fleet, put pressure on the EU, et cetera, et cetera.
And secondary sanctions on China.
Okay.
Really
secondary sanctions on China. But you have there's a crack in your foundation there. And with all due respect, the point you're missing is Trump doesn't believe in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So we can talk about Trump could have done this or done that, but the bottom line is just look around him. Listen to what he says. If you're going to put that type of pressure on Russia, then you have to have like a strong feeling in your heart and a strong feeling that what you are doing is right when you go to that level against a nation like Russia to completely cripple them. But he has his own internal struggles because he is fed by a narrative that continues to this day that Zelensky is evil. He can say what he wants to. Oh, well, he's okay. Well, he's getting better. No, the root is there. and it's in his ear nonstop, whether it comes from Trader Carlson or it comes from other sources that are in his circle that has his ear. And there are very few that actually has his ear, because he doesn't give his ear to anybody other than his little small circle. This is why Walt is out and now Marco Rubio has 4 positions, because he understands how the Kool-Aid goes. So the point being, I completely agree. That would have worked. But at first, you have to have a moral constitution that you are going to fight for Ukraine. And he doesn't have that. He still considers Vladimir Putin his friend. That has not changed. So until that changes, forget it.
Yes, I agree.
That's it.
I'm going to rush through some thanks because we've got so many. Mr. Linedust, thank you very much. Thank you to F. Oink. Has Trump ever taken responsibility for something bad? No, never has. Always shifts the blame, as you rightly recognise. Alistair Fitchy, I once backed a horse at 72 at Aintree, end up 2 for 1 at Walmart. Thank you very much, Alistair Fitchy. Really appreciate your support. Mitch Ashdown for, I presume, Greg, Trump buying Putin's words could be called the grifter, not got exactly. The grifter got grifted. Thank you, Granny Fulton. Thank you for becoming a member.
I like that name, Granny Fulton.
Matthias Rizal, some Swedish love here for one of you guys. Western media often guess that Putin has set 9th of May as a deadline for something in the war. Alas, no. To give the devil his due, Putin has read of Stalin's hurried deadlines and a waste incurred.
I don't get that last bit, to be honest, because there's no evidence that he's learned something about economizing on his troops or their lives. They're being sent on pointless and stupid missions 24/7 where they get, wiped out. So, yeah, I don't think he's learned anything.
Photograph says, guys, do you think Trump has figured out how he is being fooled by Russia? I think he's in the midst of doing so. I think there are elements he's hearing enough from other people that are outside. So, he's got this recency bias where he listens to what the last person says, or what the last person says has more purchase on him. The key is when he leaves his inner circle, that inner circle that Greg and I've been talking about, and no doubt Jonathan Fink as well, like your Stephen Millers and maybe your Tucker Carlson, the people that have his ear, either in the administration or adjacent to the administration, including his own son, right? And Elon Musk. As soon as he went to the Vatican to the Pope's funeral, outside of that circle, and he's there in St. Peter's Basilica, and he's with Emmanuel Macron, and he's with Zelensky, he has a change of heart. And that recency bias means that, he then came back and made some posts that actually made a bit of sense. But then he's gone back to his default because he's surrounded by those people. So it's like getting him out of that evil conclave of people.
It's like we should have a little sort of Trumpometer, which is like moron on one side, Russian asset on the other. Because it just, it just keeps swinging backwards and forwards. Yeah.
And to Mark Biscuit's point, and your point as well, Jonathan, French President Emmanuel Macron could join British Prime Minister. So, we're talking about Budapest Memorandum here. Keir Starmer and new German Chancellor Friedrich Merz for a surprise visit to Kiev this weekend. The joint trip is complicated to organise, not yet been finalised, but there is that will there from at least the leadership, which is good news. And for the first time since Brexit, the UK Foreign Secretary is attending an EU Foreign Ministers meeting. Top of the agenda, support for Ukraine, defence cooperation, and broader European security challenges. So the UK and France and Germany appear to be at least going in the right direction. Whether that's backed up with tangible,
ship the Tauruses, then go on a jolly to Kiev. How about that?
Yeah.
Well, I am looking forward to see how that unfolds. The Taurus.
Yeah, and it's he answered affirmatively in an interview today, so that's really good. Mercedes, YouTube user, thanks guys. Ukraine freedom and democracy is on the counterattack and will survive. Yep, let's hope you are correct there, and that's for one of you guys. Another one from one of you guys. Really,
that's new. That's on my channel. Thank you.
Yep, for anything our brothers and sisters in Ukraine need. So that's for you, Greg.
Yeah, thank you, Nunu and David L. getting the 20 memberships. Thank you, sir. He always has wonderful comments. I'm reading through them, then trying to listen to you guys. That was great. I will tell you this: we're getting ready to release a new fundraiser, and it's going to be serious. So,
well, sounds good.
Yeah.
Ole Nielsen, keep us updated. Ole Nielsen, some Danish love there for one of you guys. Please buy a doll for a little girl in Ukraine.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
May I ask a question? Just your two guys' perspective as UK guys. You are aware of the statement that Trump has made multiple times on 11-year-old girls and 15-year-old girls shouldn't have 35 dolls, just two or three.
30 dolls, 2 dolls that cost a little bit more.
Okay. So for me, I'm an American. I was born and raised in the South, but I've lived all over this country. I do my best to try to bring people together and put down our disagreements and focus on what we believe in, but and fight for that. But honestly, I don't get how a billionaire who manipulates markets and manipulates people can make that statement as the president of the United States, when one of the things about America, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you know what, daggone it, if I want to go to Walmart and buy my daughter 5 baby dolls, I'll do it. I mean, I don't, and that's my Americana coming out of me. But
and a couple for yourself, though, Greg.
But
how many dolls did you have? Come on, let's.
But the reality is, what do you guys read? I mean, like, to me, that's just like, I want to control everything.
He has to say that because otherwise he has to admit that there is inflation, when he was saying that he would sort out inflation on day one. So either he has to own it, but as someone else said in the comments just now, he can't take responsibility for anything negative. So if he's not going to own it, he has to deny it, or he has to justify it. And the way to justify it is that actually it's good that we have to have dolls that cost a little bit more than they did cost, because it's the greater good that we're striving for. You can say, but interestingly, it's exactly the same sort of stuff that in a run up to the election, his lackeys were he was slagging off in rallies, and Laura Ingraham and all these sort of people saying, oh, this is socialism. Like if we're going to have inflation and it's going to be this and it's going to be that. And then now it's actually happening on his watch. He's having to come out and justify it through these kind of weird and wonderful ways.
Having a ration book for children's toys, anyone who's experienced the tail end of the Soviet Union, I mean, or heard stories of people who brought up in the Soviet Union, that's what that was, right? Not being able to go out and buy things, make things, sell things, do what the hell you want. Well done, guys.
Hungarian Frank 400 reference $30 land of the free. Well, I'm just thankful that Donald Trump is not limiting me on how many patches I've been given from units that all of us wonderful people around the world have helped. So because I would only be limited to 2, right? And Johnny and all you guys, but praise God, he's not limiting me on the patches of the.
It's the American dream right there. I can't hear you, Greg. Your sound has gone as far as
He's pulled his microphone out in sheer excitement.
You pulled your microphone out, mate. Something's happened. We can't hear you, but it's okay. And now he's gone. I think he's lost the internet. Yeah, I think his brain's imploded. It's like
that's a good pause, freeze frame there, isn't it?
Yeah. Right, a few more thanks then while he's finding his way back to reality. Rachel Atwood, holding out for hope for Vlad Vexler's health. Yeah, that's well said. He's not been very well with his COVID complications.
He gave a slightly upbeat post just now on X, where he said after speaking to 16 doctors, finally he's found one that seems to not only take his condition seriously, but recognize the seriousness of it. So yeah, just a little ray of hope there, but we're all
good news
thinking of Vlad.
Jaril 22, don't forget the citizens of the US still care about our Ukraine and friends abroad. We are not all lost like Trump's and co. That's a really good point, and this is why I catch myself sometimes when I say the US is doing this, and I try and say the Trump administration is doing this. And actually, when I'm talking about Republicans, I'm now very careful to distinguish between MAGA Republicans and other Republicans. So, hey, the man is back.
I'll tell you one thing: don't drop your patches, I guess you just disconnect you from the internet. I'm having to call in on my phone. What in the heck happened?
Brilliant. Just throwing your patches around willy-nilly gets you in trouble.
I was just saying, hey, at least he doesn't limit us from helping units in Ukraine. I can only help 2, or 5 and not 30. But that was weird, dude.
Yeah.
That was a good patch, by the way. Is that a Hornet or something there? That was a beautiful patch.
Oh, you like that one?
Yeah, that is a cool one.
I'll find it for you.
They're all over my desk. From Norway saying the Nordics are building a strong alliance now. The Nordics are coming through. They are really still so super strong in their support of Ukraine. It's really magnificent to see. John Doe with some Swiss love here saying, let's make sure Russia never wins. Let's not lose our decency. Let's stand together. Let's never give up or let ourselves be dragged down. Slava Ukraini, everyone. And thanks to every decent person out there. That's a wonderful thing to have said. There, John Doe. There's a lovely patch there from Greg.
You like that one, JP? Jonathan Fink?
Oh, I don't know.
Beautiful. I like that one.
Yeah.
I don't like wasps. It looks like a wasp to me, or a horn. Yeah, not a fan.
Can you ask somebody in the chat? Is my stream still going? Any of my moderators just typing? I can't see any. I lost everything. Like.
Good point. We still got enough people in watching this to suggest that they are still there. Yes,
okay,
it's still
great.
going. Some says it's still going.
Thank you.
So just a few more now. Try and race through these. Terry Ralph, thank you so much. That's really, really generous from ATP there. F Oink Putler is using allied leaders as human shields. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, good point there. Have faith in Zelensky, says Daddy Jim. He has a handful of aces. Let's hope so. David L. Says Trump could easily share a couple hundred Bradleys and other drawn down equipment. I've written to my representatives, but need to write to many more. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much it could do. Haji for Silicon Curtain, 5 gifted memberships for Jonathan Fink, showing some love there. And incredible generosity from Julian Roster, trying to contribute to Cards for Ukraine, but having issues. I'm in the Fink camp. All laptops are total bastards. Please add. Cheers, big ears. Julian, that's super kind of you. Shove that across, and we're going to talk about Cards for Ukraine in a second, but that's incredibly generous, and I'll whack that across forthwith. So appreciate that. Just as I say, a couple more. Michael Vuchar, grumble, no nukes for Russia, especially with Xi there. This would kill China's soft power. Europe has been engaged in a multi-front war already. It's just that military skirmishes have not started yet, says F Oink. Thank you for that super chat. Ivan Marginianu giving some Canadian super sticker love there. And not speaking of Romania, because I don't know where you are from. Sorry. Just a little news from Romania. 2 things I was going to say, actually. First of all, this was interesting. Kiev Post reporting that Putin's a war criminal. Trump's Treasury Secretary Bessent tells Congress. Scott Bessent is quite an important member, actually, I think, of the Trump administration at the moment, given the trade wars. And for him to come out and actually say what should be blindingly obvious, which is that Putin is a war criminal. Now, the Biden administration freely admitted this, but the Trump administration won't even admit it's a war anymore, let alone, and it won't say Russia's responsible for anything. So for Scott Bessent to say that, criticize the Biden's administration weak sanctions, for him to say those are weak sanctions, well, then you had to put stronger sanctions in place. Let's do it. That's brilliant, Scott Bessent, if that is what you have said.
Well,
let's get on it.
I just saw that video before everything crashed. He was asked, is it okay to negotiate with a terrorist? And he replied, sometimes you have to negotiate with a terrorist. That's basically the background.
He then concluded by saying, we negotiated with Japan after the end of World War II. No, I think they were beaten and told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's not your typical negotiation there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, bad analogy, Scott. Shows he probably understands F all about geopolitics, in fact.
And history. And I wanted to say this about Romania. So I was quite doomy about Romania because they're a football hooligan, Eurosceptic, right-wing Putinist blokey. I mean, far right here. Won 40.9% of the vote in the first round of the presidential election. But the question is whether that's topped out that extremist vote, and actually whether, if everyone else coalesces, whether he will actually get beaten by a coalition of people. Now, it turns out that he might have attracted quite a few votes by promising people €30,000 housing grants or something. Simeon admitted that his promise to offer houses at €30,000 was part of his promotion strategy to break through the information blockade. 40,000 Romanians signed a contract with Simeon online to get homes, but the leader said people did not know what they signed up for. Now, if that's what lots of people are saying, that's what has happened. He might end up getting people reacting against that, and actually that shows kind of almost bribery for people to vote for him. So the second round, there might be more hope for the second round than we might have originally thought. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that in there, a bit of geopolitics. F Oink, as you've mentioned, Land of the Free there, with some support for you. Violet, thank you. Postcards for Peace. Thanks for my favorite three amigos, bringing the facts and insights to complex truths. Yes,
that's Australia
absolutely.
there. Yep,
that's what we like. Some Aussie
awesome.
love. Thanks, Violet. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Violet.
And Rachel Atwood, I'm anti-consumerist, but this ain't the way. Yeah, so
exactly.
We don't need $30. Of course we don't. But in fact, no one has $30 in the way that he's talking about. But the idea is he's trying to justify inflation. Which is probably not cool. Kathy's guess, thank you on behalf of one of the other guys for your super sticker there. Very kind. Bombsheller with 50 more Greg Terry experience memberships. She is on fire. Hopefully not literally.
No, and I told her earlier, I said, listen, over the next few days, if you hear an air alarm, you don't play with this one, because I don't trust Russ on anything, especially over the next few days. So
yeah,
she's doing good work there in Ukraine.
Yeah. Just two more. Ida, Norwegian love there with a super sticker. Thank you on behalf of Ida, on behalf of one of you two guys for Ida's support there. And Alistair Pitchy, for me, I should say Baldy's chat is still going.
Still going. Oh, Jonathan Fink, I'm glad to see your chat's still going, because you're bald. No, I guess. Oh, Mr. Fink, you like that one patch? I'll show you two more, since we can have more than two. I'll just show three. So this is an incredible patch, guys. So hey, we'll support Ukraine. This was an Azov patch that actually fought in the Azovstal siege. It was there.
Nice.
And then I'll show one more. There's only 10 of these in the world. And this is it's because it's the rubber one, Kriminoya Forest. They have one in like fabric, but the rubber ones, there was only 10. And this was Peter Fouché's. And you can still see the fuzz on it from his uniform. And he pulled it off. He says, listen, Greg, there's only 10 of these, and I don't need it. You need one of these. And so it's a very, very special patch, a couple of special patches here, just to encourage people today on who you're helping and how you're helping. So thank you, guys.
I'm going to get, I don't know quite where to hang this at the moment, but I'm building up my patch.
I love display. It, JP.
And we've got a bit of ATP NAFO, Rick and ATP, Rick the Ukrainian and ATP NAFO, Rick's one there. And then we've got Car for Ukraine, Jigger's Paw, and then all my ones up there that you can see just up there as well. So I'm just trying to get more.
We're gonna get a flex from Fink. We're getting a Fink flex.
Fink, right, Mr. Fink. Can I just say,
there you go.
Nice. Is that yours?
Oh, I love it.
Can you send me one of those if I donate something to you?
I'll unmute myself. I'm getting them manufactured right now, so I don't have any. This is a sample one. This is a special one. I got this at a drone company that came over. And they said this one's rather rare, but thanked us for putting on the event where they managed to raise $15,000, I think, to get new drones.
He's got one. He's got the same one. Similar.
There you go.
It's a similar one, but slightly different, like iteration. We got one from JP Lindsley. I've got one of those. I've got that one.
It's Rick.
You know, we got one from JP Lindsley. I've got the back
Correct.
of
So
mine.
we're just having fun now.
Jonathan, I got the back of mine, but the front's disappeared. Like it was not in my case.
Oh no!
So I don't.
I've got two of them. I think.
Have you got two?
I've got two or three of those. Yeah.
If I can I catch one off you? Can I do that? I'll give you my address. If you and I'll give you a donation. Yeah, that's
look
one.
at that.
I really liked it. I like that one.
Knit Ivan made. He's
I reckon
brilliant chap.
I reckon you've nicked mine, but there you go.
And
right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's that Jigger's
Paw.
That's a silicon one.
This one was in the battle worn in Bakhmut, Third Assault, and you guys heard of Da Vinci Wolves? How famous they are?
Yeah.
This is from the commander. We were helping getting into the east. He pulled it right off his uniform. His major. So Greg, you're with us now. And so some real special ones, real special ones. But hey, you'll
have the absolute ton of them. You will.
That's the quality, though. You know, we're having a little fun here. We've had a great conversation for an hour and 50 minutes, but I think it demonstrates to people on all of our channels. You know, we got relationship with these guys, and we love these people, and we fight for them, and together we all do our parts. We all do our parts. And I'm just grateful that we're all on the same team, and not even a team, just feels like we're family. And I'm so appreciative to be a part of the big family around the world.
Well said. Yeah. Well said, my man.
Yeah, definitely we feel that too.
A last minute super chat there. Matt Leach Music, new microphone fund for Pastor Greg. So
thank you, Matt Leach Music. I appreciate that. I don't know what happened, man, but that was weird timing. I can tell you that. I mean, I'm shut down completely. I'm on my phone.
There was just a couple more things I was going to add into the conversation just from what I'd laid up. One is a full-scale war between India and Pakistan may disrupt Ukraine's access to military supplies. So a lot of there was talk that actually Pakistan only has 4 days of artillery ammunition because they sold most of it to the Czech Initiative to go to Ukraine, right? So actually the war escalating in that neck of the woods, according to this expert, could have an effect on Ukraine's supply of military equipment. An escalation would likely halt supplies as both countries would seek more weapons to support their own war efforts. And of course, when you're talking about the global marketplace, that is going to affect things and push prices up, etc., etc.
And if you don't believe in confidence, if you don't believe in coincidences, and you join the dots, like the timing is extraordinary.
Absolutely, and you can put China specifically on the bullseye with this one as well because of the Belt Road Initiative, the new Silk Road. I will tell you, I saw it right before my whole system went down. Pakistan just did attack an Indian
cruise missiles,
airport with cruise missiles. And I will also tell you guys, I have personally seen with my own eyeballs Pakistani 155 millimeter shells in Ukraine. They did a deal with Ukraine early on, and supplied Ukraine with some artillery shells early, first half of the war.
Because they need. So the thing about Pakistan is, though, they are desperate for money. So they're being bailed out by the IMF at the moment, and there are some saying that actually India, just do a sidebar here, some saying that India have a much greater ability to be able to kind of do that conflict for a longer period. Actually, Pakistan are in a bit of a shaky place economically speaking, and so actually that's why they were so happy to sell stuff to Ukraine, because get some good money for some old Soviet shells. It's
really funny that happening there, because I can remember early in the war being there and talking right with the guys, and they were using the Pakistani shells, and they would complain about them because they were such poor quality. I mean, I'm just telling you the truth. Poor quality. It was damaging their barrels. They were misfiring, and they couldn't interchange them. So I don't know. I think it's I'm with Jonathan Fink on this one. A lot of interesting timing going on right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was really dependent. So it was triggered by a horrific terrorist attack by some Pakistani terrorists in Kashmir. So I don't know. Maybe, I suppose you could argue it's easier for terrorists to be swayed by money and state entities rather than whole states doing that. So I suppose that argument could go both ways, as I think.
I'd say it makes it far more likely if it's terrorists that you can actually sway that. You know, the same as various atrocities, the bombing in Boston a number of years ago, and some of these atrocities in Germany, I'm sure, where people drive cars and vehicles into crowds. I mean, yes, there's stuff going on that Moscow hasn't initiated, but when the timing significantly benefits them, you have to ask the question.
Yeah.
Well, I would just say this in far as timing. We talked about it earlier. Bring it back to Ukraine. In Pakistan, I was covering it live last night, and then I did some more research later. This is the largest flare-up since 1971, because they're flaring up quite regularly in that Kashmir region. But this is the most serious one since 1971. So we need to pay attention to it and the timing of it. But for me, right now, the timing is what I want to watch is the next 72 hours here. Really, I'm so interested. I can't wait to get my stuff back on to figure out. Zelensky has made masterful moves this entire time, and to be quite honest, Putin has made some good moves as well. I don't know what's going to happen next, and I'm waiting just like all of you guys are. We need to watch, though.
Another interesting geopolitical nugget just before I guess we kind of wrap things up. Someone was just saying it in a live chat, and I can't find it now, but they're saying tomorrow's going to be an interesting day for Viktor Orban. And I was thinking, oh, what's that about? And I'd forgotten this, but actually, so Peter Magyar, I can't find a comment. Sorry, whoever made that comment. Well played, because actually, I don't know if you guys know, but Peter Magyar, not for the first time, so he's the opposition leader, used to be in the Fidesz party with Viktor Orban, is married to someone who's still in the Fidesz party. He sort of left and then became this opposition figure who released an audio tape of his wife, someone else, and also implicating Viktor Orban in corruption. That gathered loads of momentum. Then there were these big protests about that. He's now taken his new party Tisza into a polling lead over Orban. Orban is due, well, the elections are due in 2026, but it looks like Orban is properly on the back foot at the moment. He's been seen recently shaking hands with the far right leader there, looking to maybe try and form a union with the far right. Meanwhile, we are hearing that Peter Magyar says that tomorrow he will release information on Fidesz that will be the downfall of the party. Expected at 9 a.m. Central European time. We are publishing evidence that will make it clear to everyone that Viktor Orban and his family have been lying for years. There's also been a set of sort of documentary, but one major documentary coming out showing the sheer wealth of the Orban family. People that had no money suddenly billionaires, and the grifting and the corruption at the heart of the Hungarian country and government because of Orban. Then you had in trouble with, getting in trouble today. So I'm just going to show you this. This is the last one. Orban is trying to access 600 million euros in frozen EU's funding using bookkeeping tricks. That's why the European Parliament sent a letter to the EU Commission, as he's done before. So, he's trying to be fast and loose with money and all sorts. He could be in trouble. Like, if that Peter Magyar thing comes to fruition, then that's going to be super interesting, because actually we as in supporters of Ukraine really need Orban to be gone. The EU needs Orban to be gone. They need Hungary to be back on the European side. That will then make Slovakia's positioning more shaky, and it will make Romania's drift to the right maybe start to be
neutralize that ever so slightly, maybe give it more traction there with that.
Hugely important. So watch your space.
Orban is Trump's buddy, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but it's been interesting there, because Trump has now positioned America strongly against China. So China is the bogeyman, right? And Orban, it has a very close relationship with China. So the Belt and Road Initiative is actually going into the EU through Hungary. And, China funded the railway between Serbia and Hungary, and a lot of money, Chinese money, is in Hungary. And Trump has apparently got a little bit dodgy with Orban over the close relationship with China. And so there's an interesting tension there.
In general, especially with the tariffs, we've become very protectionist and isolationist. So nothing is surprising. Listen, we're doing nothing but destroying any relationship we have, whether they're good or bad. That's just what it is.
Can I then? That's a perfect segue to the very last thing I was going to say.
I'm glad I could segue you.
Talking about tariffs, this has come out today. Absolutely, totally unsurprising. The grift at the heart of the government in the US is insane. And here is the latest example. So the Washington Post has come out with some cables that they've got hold of that shows that the US has been pushing nations who are facing tariffs to approve Musk's Starlink. The Washington Post is reporting that the Trump administration is pushing countries to grant operating permits to Elon Musk as a precondition for a trade deal, according to a leak from the State Department. Some countries are preemptively complying to earn favor with the US. I mean, this is freaking corruption at its highest, in my opinion. Washington Post obtained internal cables revealing that the US government is pressuring countries facing tariffs to approve Elon Musk Starlink, the most corrupt administration in history. Starlink has been seeking access to customers in Lesotho, but it was not until Trump unveiled the tariffs and called for negotiations over trade deals that the leaders of the country awarded Musk's firm the nation's first ever satellite internet service license, so on and so forth. At the heart of the government was Elon Musk, and he's now reaping the rewards. And I guess the final words from Richard Bennett should be bollocks to Musk. Yes,
Are
my
you
man.
surprised?
No, completely unsurprised. Totally 100,000,000 gazillion % unsurprised.
It's the big "I told you so," isn't it? Really.
Listen. Here's all I'm going to say. We have the Gulf of America. Canada, no matter what they say, Ovechkin's the greatest Canadian hockey player ever. Additionally, Greenland, you're still on our radar. And dag on it, we're going to reopen Alcatraz. So let me just tell you, nothing will surprise me coming out of Washington, D.C. And it's tragic.
The rumor is that Trump watched Alcatraz. The film was on locally. The rumor is he watched Alcatraz the night before, and then the day after he's like, "Oh, Alcatraz, let's get that going again." Now I can't confirm that, but that is a rumor. It was playing. That's been confirmed that it was doing its thing. Do you mention Greenland? And I didn't mention this earlier, but this is something I was almost mentioned. Is that they are ramping up intelligence gathering, so they're basically spying on Greenland. They're ramping up spying on Greenland. Is the news coming out today? So it's just all happening. The world has gone crazy.
It's totally normal to tell the people you're spying on that you're going to be spying on them a little bit more, because that's what spies do. They're just like, they signal it in advance, don't they?
I'm a spy. I'm going to spy on you. Oh, I've been shot. Oh dear. I've got polonium in my tea. Yeah. Shouldn't laugh about that. Someone died. Obviously, people died.
No, but it's where we're at, guys, and we'll see. Going to be very interesting the next 24 to 72 hours with many things unfolding. You not only have the hungry news you were just sharing about what the war, the ceasefires, the different views of that, but remember we've got the big announcement coming. So we also have the conclave. For the new pope. I mean, there's just a lot of things happening right now, and just hoping Donald Trump doesn't disrespect that again.
And we got the new season of Welcome to Wrexham, which I'm quite looking forward to as well. So that's also important too. Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney getting involved in British football, so in English football. So I'm sure you're all particularly looking forward to that. So I am. But...
Oh, I'm
hugely. Wow.
I don't even understand what you said, but I support you 100%.
Brilliant. So last words from before the last words, can I remind people, and I don't know what the case is for Jonathan Fink and Greg Terry, but for my audience, and in fact any humans out there, please support the Easter Pysanky Car for Ukraine fundraiser. Look, I'm just ATP Geopolitics just into fourth position now, and closing in on Georgi Georgi from Ukraine Matters and Laserpig. Let's do it. You can do it. Please help out. Go to atpgeo.com/donate, and you'll get sent to this page and help us out with Car for Ukraine.
And if you can't stand Jonathan's insufferable smugness if he wins, then donate to mine.
Yeah, but no, don't do that. Just please suffer my smugness. No, do that. Honestly, donate to anyone who's helping Ukraine. Just go with your conscience, go with your heart, but definitely go with me.
Yes. And Greg's microphone fund as well. Yeah.
Well, no, I don't need a microphone fund, but I will tell you, was working on it today with Project Konstantin and Gertis and myself and Project Konstantin and Zhenya. We're getting ready to unveil a big one. So thank you all in advance for helping everybody. We're all working together. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And I'll have a little word to close my bits out. Just finished recording an interesting conversation with Konstantin. I know they're all relatively interesting. I'll try to whack my microphone. But there's some interesting stuff going on in Russia that we need to watch. Yes, they have a severe financial crisis. Yes, their projected budget deficit this year is actually more than the liquid funds they have left in the sovereign wealth fund that they can access.
Yeah,
there's some
I reported
big things
that the other
going
day,
on there. But it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that because they're on the cusp of potentially freezing everyone's private accounts, private funds, and then exchanging them for shares in Russia's military industrial complex and extraction industries. Now, that might sound like a nice idea, but Konstantin and I came to the conclusion that what we're seeing is the third great enslavement. It's serfdom 3.0, converting the entire Russian population into resources of the state to dictate exactly where they live, where they die, what they do, from cradle to grave. So this is a theme I think we'll pick up in another discussion with Jonathan and do a bit of prep on that. But I think we're seeing a historic move, not away from war, but headlong into turning Russia into a military camp.
This is what Nabiulina, the head of the Russian central bank, was saying in November. So she said that in, I think she said March time, we could be freezing people's current accounts and blah, blah, blah. And everyone cacked themselves and then they kind of denied it. But obviously, Konstantin's saying, no, it could well be on the cards.
Taking a step closer, yeah. And they found this little convenient vehicle of, hey, we're going to exchange all your money for shares in this wonderful economy of ours. But yeah, you have to go and fight and die to protect it. So that's the small print bit. But we'll pick that up because I think it's has big implications actually. And looping back to that conversation, we got a little bit under the collar. I mean, it should really be a wake-up call for Europe and everybody else to really tool up for what's coming because it's only going in one direction.
This is our long goodbyes, and I'm sorry it's my fault. I'm trying to let us say goodbye. But I think Europe, so I think we have woken up, and it's just democracies. It's the difficulty of trying to mobilize militarily within a democratic framework. And I think we've woken up to the
current crisis, John. We've woken up to the current crisis that's before us. We've not woken up to the crisis that's just over the horizon, I think is what I'm trying to say. It's far bigger even.
I think that there's a challenge to democracy. I think the biggest crisis facing us all, and we can see this in the US, where you think all the checks and balances should be in place, but actually they seem to be deconstructed fairly quickly without too much effort from the Trump administration, which shows us how delicate the institutions that we have that we think are unable to be taken from us, how close we are at all times to a complete destruction of our known society. Like we take for granted how because we've had this for 80 years now, how how safe and how well grounded our
fragile.
democracies are, but they are so fragile. And it's at times like this that you realize how fragile they are when you see things happening, like with regard to war, obviously, you know, the assault on a democracy of Ukraine, and then you see a kind of a movement towards autocracy in the United States, which is supposed to be this beacon of freedom and democracy, and then you see the EU struggling, and we see Russia feeding all of these problems around the world, and yeah, so I think
well, you lead me into the only thing that I would say in regard to both, and I love watching you two guys banter back and forth, but in regard answering both of you, Russia has been preparing for this for decades and decades.
yes,
and the rest of the world is trying to play catch up. It's hard to catch up when you're already starting 5 moves behind. So that's the challenge of it, to be quite honest. And if anybody thinks they haven't been preparing for this, then we'll be glad to talk about that more in other videos and resources. But they've been preparing for this for decades. Hey, Papa Dutch, yeah, Operator Gregsky. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna go perm my hair. I'm gonna go give myself a perm. You know what a perm is, Johnny?
Yeah. Let's not talk about hair. I'm hiding it. Right.
You curl your hair.
I know very well what a perm is. Okay. I was around in the 80s.
Okay.
In fact, one of my friends just got her hair permed. Sorry, this is not relevant at all, but one of my friends, really, really beautiful woman, see her on Facebook all the time as a friend that I knew when we were sort of 17, 18. And she's just fully got her hair permed in like I was saying the other day, like there was someone that came up on the screen, on the Alexa screen I've got, who is a modern singer-songwriter, and he's got a moustache and a mullet, right? I'm like, what is going on? Why is it like, I remember the 80s and that was just so not cool. And now moustaches are cool again and mullets are cool again. And my kids are asking to get mullets. And I'm like, we took the piss out of people with mullets like before. And now why are mullets cool? Why? Anyway, like, I just don't understand. So permed hair, mullets, and moustaches are all back in. I think personally, and I think all of you should agree now that Greg has joined us, that bald heads, like just people struggling to have hair on their heads, is cool. And that's all we need to remember. Anyway, good night.
Let me do this. Come here, son. This is my son. And so, as you can see,
he's got the mullet. This is it.
Here you go.
God damn it!
Come on, even when I got the light. Look at that mullet right there, son.
And he's shaking it. He's shaking his mullet.
But
what is going on in the world? What is going on in the world?
I don't know. I have no hair. My son has it all. So, hey, for those of you guys that stuck around for the extended version of the live stream, you got to see a mullet. So,
and Benson Boone was a singer-songwriter I was talking about, in case anyone cares. He's got a mullet and a moustache. But there you go. And that shows that I'm down with the kids and I'm really cool and know what I'm talking about. Anyway, Jonathan thinks just in a glazed, just staring into the middle distance.
I'm gonna have to head in a second. I'm going to an event in the morning, a breakfast event, though, ludicrously early. So I'm gonna have to wrap it up.
I appreciate you fellows, both of you, Johns, very, very much, and look forward to continue to work together, and most importantly, be friends and fight. So we all do our parts, and most importantly, thank you to all the people watching on Silicon Curtain, on ATP Geopolitics, and on my channel. We appreciate all of you, because if it wasn't for you guys supporting and helping and loving and we learn together, we grow together, it would just be a bald guy and 2 Brits sitting here looking at each other talking.
Yeah.
We'd still do it anyway, but
absolutely,
it's nice to have that.
Yes,
I would be sitting here talking to a screen, whether you guys are here or not, but it's so much more fulfilling with other human beings. So thank you for existing and for being part of this project in trying to help out Ukraine. So thank you for all of that, guys.
Well, I'm going to go check my internet. You guys be blessed.
And you too. Speak soon.
Take care. Sir. May the cosmos shine on you.
Yes, and may the angelic voice of God speak to you tonight while you sleepeth, and may the glorification of the pontiff shine upon you, Donald Trumpeth. God bless this youth.
Oh, I might be snoring too loudly to hear
Catch you
all
later.
that. Though.
Thank you
Take
to all
care,
the
y'all.
moderators, everybody. We appreciate, love all of you guys. Be blessed.
Big love. Thanks, mods.
Thank you.